Good morning. For 'tis morning, ladies and gentlemen. 5 a.m., in fact, February 22nd. As I like to say, bedhead, bedbeard. Got my go juice. Can you see the steaming hotness of that? Probably not. My cup gets hot. And I love how I woke up this morning. You can kind of see it was a lot worse a few minutes ago, but I slept on this side of my face, so everything was mashed over to this side this morning. It's great. That's why I love these Monday Musings episodes, because we've got Monday Musings with Monday mattedness. It's all good. And move this over so that I can be a little bit more in front of the camera so I'm looking straight up. Get my dailies going here in my Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I almost dropped my phone while I'm going. Welcome. Getting down to the end of February. Let's talk about some stuff this morning. First and foremost, I'd like to say welcome to all the new people because the channel has been growing at a pretty good rate the last couple of weeks. I'd like to say thanks to the Lord of the Rings Online team. I know a lot of the views and people we've been getting have come from that direction as a result of the Locho Cooking in Real Life series, which is great. I'm glad that people are finding refuge in food when everything else in the world seems to be crazy. Um, my wife and I started that as I like to cook. We both like to cook. We were cooking for her show um, over on her Patreon, which is Christmas Kitchen, and I guess this started a few months back now because it's done like 8 episodes or so. And it was just one of those things where I like to cook. I was cooking with her, and I figured, what the hell, I'll do some medieval recipes that were inspired by Lord of the Rings Online, and it seems to be going well. People like it, and on Discord, I know like Scribbles and Adric, in particular, have shared their versions of the onion soup, which was the recipe that went up last week. Last week? Yes. I can't remember what day that went up. 17th, which was last week. Yeah. So they've been enjoying that onion soup along with everybody. No, wait, onion soup recipe was, yeah, that was the onion soup. I don't even know what day it is. Who cares? Anyway, thanks to all the new people for following. Um, It was the 17th because I'm not doing an episode this week. Next week, which is the third will be the next episode of the Low Cooking in Real Life series. That's going to be the pie crust recipe where I just show everybody how I make the pie crust that I use for everything. And that pie crust um, is used for meat pies, fruit pies, vegetable pies. It's used for all sorts of different pies. And a matter of fact, one of the recipes that's coming up in March is going to be a chicken slash mushroom pie, which we're going to be doing. Cast iron skillet. I love that cast iron skillet. But yeah, that's coming up. So stay tuned for that. Um, let's talk about this morning. We're going to talk about world building. We're going to talk about TikTok. We're going to talk about uh, stuff. So I don't know how long this episode will be this morning. I probably should have put on a hat, but that's the nice part about being old is you don't give a shit anymore about whether or not you look perfect for the video. So let's talk about TikTok first. Um, I'm doing some experimenting with TikTok. If you're not following along, you should be. Links are below. Um, I avoided TikTok for a long time, not because I felt that it was a stupid app or that the things people do on there are stupid, but because I didn't feel like I was doing anything that was worthy of documenting on TikTok. And I'm not the type of person who's just going to go create silly dance videos um, for TikTok. And what I mostly knew about TikTok was that's what a lot of people are using it for is silly dance videos and stuff. But my brother, as he and I were starting to talk about this project that we're working on with my wife, um, he was showing me some of the things that he's come across on TikTok, And as I started digging into the platform more, I began to realize that there is a great big world of creators on TikTok. And this is funny because as someone who has made a living with digital media for a long time now, um, that's been my primary career is in digital marketing. It's been very rare for me to come across a platform that I've just written off. And I think it's because for the last few years in particular, I didn't need to be focused on, the new apps and the new trends and everything else because we were so focused on development. And TikTok kind of passed me by. I'm familiar with it because the last, say, especially through quarantine, it's blown up for a lot of people. Excuse me. And I know late at night when I'm laying in bed trying to go to sleep, I'm on Facebook scrolling, and I like to watch comedy videos. And I especially like to watch a lot of British comedy videos, some brilliant British comedians. But in the scrolling, at late night at Facebook, you often get a bunch of little video snippets that pop up in your feed as you're going along, and a lot of those are videos from TikTok. And so, I'm familiar with TikTok, and I've been, you know, watching it for a while. But when I started digging into what creatives are doing on the platform, I began to realize that okay, so this is an interesting take. It's just, we're doing shorter versions of other things and promoting content outside of the platform for some people. There's one guy I really like. I don't know who he is. I don't follow him yet. I've stumbled across a few of his videos. My brother was familiar with him. He's a guy from Colorado. He's got longer hair and a beard. I think it's called it's like Caveman Creations or something like that. And he basically takes requests from the community. And it's like, can you make a hat? And he's like, of course I can make a hat. And he'll, you know, break up some flint and rocks and cut the leather and cut the hide and make a hat using only primitive handmade tools. Like somebody's like, make a shield, and so he's like, okay, here's how you make a shield, and he, takes rocks and splits the wood, and it's a very interesting TikTok, which led me down the rabbit hole of watching what other people are doing in like the D&D space, and there's a lot of amazing cosplay going on. But just the deeper down the rabbit hole I went, I was like, you know what, there's definitely now that we're working on this project full time, um, and we're not because the way my brother and I and my wife are working on this new project, we're not there's no NDAs or anything like that. We're not worried about hiding things or going dark or any of that other kind of stuff. There's no need to worry about secrecy. So um, I was like, this is going to be a great way to document the project that we're working on. So I've been experimenting with TikTok, and I think to date I've done a couple of silly videos. Um, one with my wife, she made some cinnamon rolls, and I thought that was a fun little video to do. But for the most part, I've been documenting like her doing sketches and the world building stuff I'm doing. And I don't know what I'm doing with the program yet. I've also been playing around with the algorithm and testing different things to see exactly what's going to work. If you go on my TikTok, you'll notice that the first few videos got, 2,500, 3,500 views, and then the last few videos have only gotten, 100 and some plus views. And that's because I changed some settings on the back end from the default settings, and it definitely affected uh, the views that I was getting, which is not a bad thing because the views that I was getting through the first few days were irrelevant views. It was just people who were scanning through and liking the videos just for that, but they weren't actually following through and doing any calls to action. So obviously, with any marketing effort, you want to focus on getting people to follow through and take the call to action as opposed to only ever watching the video. So I have been experimenting with that. As we get deeper into this project, I will probably start to refine a few um, features. One of the things I like to do so far, just because I think it's funny, and for me it's a quirky little thing, is when I wake up right now, because I cut all my hair off in September, and right now I'm getting into whatever is a few inches long, and the beard, because my wife is like, you need to grow the Gandalf beard. So for those of you who have beards like I have a beard, I do not have a perfect full thick, luxurious beard that is just perfect when you wake up. I have a beard that is, thinner on one side than the other, and it requires some strategic trimming and also some strategic fluffing, if you were. I'm a professional fluffer. Um, that's an inside joke for those of you who know. So when I first wake up in the morning, everything is smushed to one side, and it's not until I go take a shower and comb it out and everything else that it gets the nice fluffy bushy look that she likes. And she often, especially after watching most recently the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies, she literally has commented that she wants me to grow the Gandalf beard. So she's wanting me to grow, a year and a half, 2 year long beard. So I'm going to do that because what the wife wants, the wife gets. Placate the lady in your life, ladies and gentlemen. Um, but when I wake up in the morning, I find it quite amusing, and I've done this a few times now, where I take a very quick snippet and I'm like, bedhead, bedbeard, and then I go pour coffee, and then I go to work. And I'm thinking that that's going to become a trend just to play around with and see how that is for TikTok. I don't do it anywhere else. It's just a TikTok thing. Um, wake up, bedhead, bedbeard, pour my coffee, get to work. Like this morning, I did one that was bedhead, bedbeard, coffee, and then straight to um, Incarnate, where I was working on the world map a little bit this morning, which is a segue here in a minute. Um, anyway, we're experimenting with TikTok and looking at what other creators are doing. There's unfortunately a lot of people use, like if you go to the game dev hashtag, it's really bad. It's there's not a lot of interesting stuff there. It's mostly just crap. I'm more interested in like the D&D TikTok tabletop world building. The world building in particular, there is this girl. I think she's from the UK. I stumbled across her TikTok. She does this thing where she puts the paper down and she just like pours lentils out of a bowl or a container onto the map and then traces the outline of however the lentils fall. And then that's the outline of her world map, and then she goes from there and hand draws everything. And I've been fascinated when I first saw her videos. I spent like 3 hours just scrolling through, and then I went to her Tumblr, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing stuff." And the deeper I've gotten into the world building hashtag on TikTok, there's some really amazing things that artists are doing in terms of map making and cartography and fantasy world building and everything else. So I'm finding that to be a very groovy space right now. And I think it's fun just for the short little snippets because obviously when I come here on YouTube, I'm more familiar with YouTube because I've been using YouTube for, I don't know, 10 years now, more, at least 10 years. I think I bought my first video camera in 2011, so it's been at least 10 years. And that was when I started doing the expat guidebook videos from my balcony in Cancun. Um, that's 10 years ago. So I've been using YouTube at least 10 years. Now, the fun part about this is that I've never tried to have a huge following on YouTube. That's never been why I was on YouTube. I just like to create and do video content. Um, so I've been using YouTube for 10 years, so I like that, and I like the longer form content. Short form content has always been something that I've kind of ignored, but now that we've got time and we're doing this new project and everything else, I'm trying new things. So yeah, that's my TikTok experiment. So if you haven't done so already, make sure to follow along on TikTok, which is below. Links are below, because that's going to be a place where we are doing quite a bit of teaser content for the project that we're working on that we're launching in March. My brother's going to be sharing snippets on his own TikTok. I'm going to be sharing snippets on my TikTok. Um, I don't know if Chris is going to start a TikTok. She might, but my wife is not a huge social media fan. She's actually quite. She's not a luddite at all by any means, but she's not a. She just doesn't live on the internet like I do, and and so as a result, she doesn't have the same level of familiarity, and she's not as comfortable with it as I am, and a lot of that is just because I've got 10 years on her in terms of you know being focused on the internet and doing things online, where as opposed to she didn't start even really worrying about an online presence until around 2013, 2014. I would have to look at when her Facebook page was created, but it was like 2013, 2014. That's when she first started having an online presence. Um, so, whereas I've been online since the mid 90s, I can remember being back as a late teenager in early AOL chat rooms. Like they used to have these fantasy chat rooms where you would go and talk about D&D, and they would have these play-by-post role play chat rooms. We could go in and role play your characters, and then there was the play-by-post forums. And so I mean, I've been using the internet in some way, shape, or form since the mid 90s. I can even remember early 90s, like going to my grandparents' house and they had AOL, when I was like 12 or 13, like 92, 93. Um, Prodigy, all that stuff back in the day. Um, and then when it had to have been 99, I think. I'm trying to think back now. 98, 99. It was 99 because that was the year that the Star Wars Festival came to Denver. It was the first Star Wars Festival. That was the year EverQuest came out. I got cable internet because EverQuest came out. Um, I only had dial-up, and then I was in line at the Star Wars Celebration for the store to go buy a bunch of Legos. And I was talking to these guys behind me, and they were raving about this game that had just come out called EverQuest. And, you know, the rest is kind of history. I went out and got a copy of the game and was like, I want to. And I was, lived in an area of Colorado where we had AT&T was offering cable internet, and I don't even remember the speeds back then, but it was, $100 a month or something. And so I got cable internet, and so I have had an online presence full time since '99. So I mean, that's the difference, you know, between my wife and I. So I don't know if she'll do a TikTok or not, but she has her Instagram and her YouTube, and her Facebook. But I'm the one who puts all her videos up on YouTube. She really doesn't do anything with it. We're just storing videos there for now. She just mostly uses her Facebook page and her Instagram page, and that's about it. She does use her, WhatsApp is the big thing, to stay in touch with family, and also Facebook. So she uses Facebook a lot, but on a personal level, not on a professional level, as much as I do. Anyway, segue into uh, the new project. Now let's talk a little bit more about some other stuff. So I mentioned recently that we had kind of revived marginal boundaries and on a hobby basis. And I don't know if I mentioned this in the last video, in the last Monday Musings. Maybe I did. Um, so one of the projects I'm working on is Hidden Compass, which is this. I've been working there. I've been helping them out for 2.5 years now, a little bit more. And that's a really awesome travel publication. You should check it out if you haven't already done so. Um, Even in its 2.5 short years, it's already won a boatload of awards in the travel writing and travel photography space. And we've started these awesome crowdfunding campaigns where people can directly contribute to the writers on top of what the magazine is already paying them. And the magazine pays pro rates. We've already had one girl. She did the last issue. She had a really cool story. Her name was Jana, and she lives in Italy, and she was doing this really cool story about this woman Honor, who was like one of the first women scuba divers, and like her crowdfunding campaign knocked it out of the park, raised like $3,000, and that kind of stuff is really amazing. But what I like about travel, and one of the reasons that I've always loved travel is I always in my mind when I was a kid growing up, it was always this Indiana Jones concept of going off and exploring and being that archaeologist character. And I've been blessed when Chris and I were on the road to go do a lot of really cool, really fun stuff in different countries around the world. And just as a result of keeping my toe in the travel space, so to speak, even when I've been working full time in game development the last few years, um, by keeping those relationships open around the world and continue to work with them, I've been able to continue to have that access to the travel space. And one of the things that came out recently, I think I did talk about this a little bit last week, was by chance and opportunity, because it just happened to come up that things were, you know, we needed to have conversations with people in certain areas to talk about different marketing things. And as a result, I ended up getting in touch with the guy who used to run the Costa Brava Tourism Board um, when we were there working in 2015, and we did a really big project for them. And then they've invited us back multiple times, and we always turned them down because we were too busy here. I was too busy working on Saga Leucemia. Now that that's no longer the case, and we got back into those conversations and everything else, um, invitations have been put out again, and conversations have been being had. And we're currently in the middle of discussing whether or not we're going to be speaking at some speaking engagements coming up at the end of this year. But the most important thing is that, like, I was just checking my emails this morning, um, and the wheels are turning about some potential projects in Italy, as well as definitely a return to Spain to work on some additional projects in Spain. So that's really, I think that's for me, it's really cool to be in a position where you can take 3 years off from something, but to have a good enough reputation and a good enough, skill set within that category that you can take 3 years off, come back, and jump right into it like you never even went away. So that's, obviously what we're waiting on right now is, we're waiting on the world. We have to wait to get vaccinated. We have to wait to see what COVID's going to do this year. We have to wait for travel restrictions to lessen. But even with all of those things still being in flux, it's I'm not gonna lie. It's a nice thing to be wanted and to be in a position where you know that you've done good enough work that you can go back and continue and pick up where you left off without any sort of um, like nothing, like there was no time off at all. So I think that's a really cool place to be, and I'm totally tooting my own horn on that note this morning. Let's talk about the project. I say the project. So, um, if not today, then tomorrow it will be doing a social media blast about this, but you're going to hear it here first. I said last week that I was going to confirm it. I am confirming it this morning. We're going to be doing a live stream here on YouTube, March 1st, 8 p.m. Central. Myself, my brother, and my wife. Um, and we're going to be doing the reveal of the project that we're kicking off on March 1st. Now, we've already done a lot of pre production, and I've been teasing a lot of stuff out. If you checked social media yesterday, um, it started on TikTok, obviously, and then I spread it out from there. But I did a 30-second clip of the map that's currently being built. Um, and that's actually an hour-long video, which will be going up on YouTube in March. It's the second of the world building videos. The first world building videos is where I came in here and I brought all my old camera gear out and I put the camera up over here, looking down at the desk, and I did a 20 some minute video hand drawing the outlines of the continents. And then after that, went in and transposed it into Incarnate, which is a map making program. And then I did the first session, and every single session, this is the fun thing, and we're going to be talking more about this on March 1st. Excuse me. Every single aspect of this new project, every single thing, 100% is being documented, live streamed, recorded, and put up on YouTube with associated Patreon posts. Now, not everything is going to be video content. A lot of it's going to be only Patreon. So one of the things I'm doing as an example, um, there are development posts that we'll be putting out multiple times per week, and those are, written word only, and that's all going to be only through Patreon. But all this pre-production stuff we've done, map making, world building, everything else, that's pre-recorded. It's going up, associated posts. And then our brainstorming sessions are being recorded as well. So when we sit down and develop a race, as an example, that entire conversation is documented. Where are we taking our inspiration from? What are our ideas? What are the notes we're taking? What are the riffs that we're doing? All of that's being documented and put out there. And we're showing people the entire process of building a world from scratch, and then the the three products that are being designed around that world. 100% of this is being documented. All of it. We're taking you through the entire process. Now, this is a lot different from when I built the Saga of Lucemia, I built the Saga of Lucemia in a vacuum because I did that back in 1999, 2000. Um, I was living in that house with my high school friends, and I created that as a D&D world for them. So I was creating everything in my mind as a world for them to play through, and then they rolled their characters and played through that campaign, and that evolved the world map, and that evolved the story of the world. And then by the time I then took that and put it into a play-by-post um, format in the early aughts, Saga of Lucemia had evolved to the point where it now had a better backstory. We had a more defined world map, and that was the first time that I defined the fingerless mirror map. Was 2003-ish, 2002, 2003, and then all of the world building that took place during the play-by-post days, because there was about a year and a half, 2 years on Easyboard, was when I was doing all those city maps for Fingless Mirror and Whitehall and everything else. And then by the time I got around to writing the first short story in the world, which was 2008, January of 2008 was when I wrote The Medallions of Shiva. I already had everything designed, but it had all been done here and in a vacuum because I wasn't doing that in a public space. I wasn't out there promoting things and everything else. And you'll find that for a lot of people who write books and create series and everything else, for the most part, all the world building you're doing is either completely done by yourself or you're doing it with the people with whom you're working on the project with. But it's not stuff that you necessarily share with the outside world. This is especially true for authors who write fantasy novels and science fiction novels. Most of your world building is done, if not at your home office, in your own space. You're taking notes in a journal, you're doing I say dictaphone. I don't even know if those are things anymore, but you're using a recorder or you're putting it on your phone or whatever the case may be. But all of your world building is done in this bubble. Um, if you have a co-writer, you might be doing it with your co-writer. If you have a couple of partners, you might be doing it with your partners. But it's typically done in this background space that the public doesn't ever see. And the only thing the public ever sees is that finished product in terms of, oh, here's the book, and here's the world map, and here's the story and the characters and the world and the races and the history and everything. But they're getting a finished, polished product, and they're not actually seeing everything that takes place. And one of the things that I really enjoyed throughout the you know 7 years or whatever that I worked on the Saga of Lucemia, one of the things that I always enjoyed, and for those of you who followed along, this, I always enjoyed the behind the scenes stuff of showing people how that cake was made. Like here's how we're putting the ingredients in. But even on the Saga of Lucemia, there was still a lot of, especially when it comes to the game, that's being worked on, the MMORPG. There's always been NDAs and things that were kept in the dark because you don't want competition, and there are reasons for that kind of stuff. But because this is a different type of project and we're doing it specifically through Patreon, there's no need for any of that. We're not worried about competition. We're not worried about any of that stuff. It's just, here's a fun little hobby. It's like we're all doing this in our spare time, and it's a fun little kind of passion project, hobby project that we're just doing for shits and giggles. It's pandemic. What else are we going to do? It's one of those things. It's like everybody has free time on their hands, and you can either sit there and watch a ton of Netflix and play video games, or you can do something creative. My wife's doing a lot of painting, and when I saw her doing a lot of painting, I was like, "Hey, what do you have any interest in doing concept art for this project?" And she was like, "Hell yeah, I love to draw. I love to paint." And so that was this natural byproduct of her having extra time, her liking to paint, liking to draw, and me going, well, hey, if you want to work with my brother and I on this, and she was like, yeah. So that's how that came about. And so because everybody's got extra time right now, I just thought it was a fun thing to do to come on and showcase everything. So the reveal, and I apologize for the sniffles this morning. My nose is a little bit runny, um, and stuffy. Uh, March 1st. You heard it here first, 8 p.m. We're going to be doing a live stream. And that's going to be a chance for people who are interested to come in, hang out, ask questions. Like I said, we're going to be doing the full project reveal. So we're going to be talking about the three parts of that project, all the things that are being worked on, and how that's going to be unfolded because it's 100% done through Patreon and obviously through social media. Um, we've already created, we have not revamped it yet, but we've created all of the new tiers for Patreon. And that's going to be revamped. I'm going to be working on that on the day of the first, on the afternoon of the first, maybe the whole day. It's probably going to take me 6 or 7 hours to get all the Patreon revamped. So for those of you who are wanting a preview of what's going to be talked about on Monday night, the 1st of March, um, pay attention to the Patreon page because the changes are going to be going live throughout the afternoon so that by the time we're ready to go live with the project on that evening, people will be able to go straight to the Patreon page and see what we're talking about and check out some of the concept art and some of the other stuff. If you've already been a subscriber of the Patreon page, you've already seen some of the concept art. If you've been following along social media, you've seen some of the teasers. But that day, or that evening, I should say, we're gonna be doing multiple things are going live that night. So it's going to be a way to get up to speed with all the stuff that's being worked on. So like I said, there's been a lot of pre-production that's been happening throughout the month of February, but we're actually starting the project in the month of March in terms of that's when we turn the tap on and we actually start sharing everything that we've been working on to date. I'd say past, throughout the month of February, it's been maybe there's maybe been it's hard to estimate, but I'd say there's maybe been 5, 6 hours a week, being put into the project. So not a lot of time. 5, 6 hours, so it's like an hour a day. An hour a day we work on something related to the project. My wife has done way more work than I have in terms of time commitments. Like there was one day she sat here a couple Saturdays ago. She did like three final sketches and some other. I mean, she was like 10 hours on the sofa just going crazy in her notebook, in her sketch pad. And, she did multiple tree things for our tree sketches. I've got one of them on the wall. Um, and some other stuff. So I mean, it's like she's had days where she's just sat there. I mean, not just that day. That was the big day. She had like 10 hours. But most days when she sits 10 hours, she'll sit there for 4 or 5 hours in her sketch pad and just draw. Whereas I'm more like, okay, I've got a spare hour today. I'll go work on it here. Spare hour this afternoon, work on it here. Maybe nothing tomorrow, but then the next day I come in and do like an hour and a half. Then the next day maybe 2 hours, and then nothing for 2 or 3 days. It's kind of that's how it works for me. The difference is that starting in March, we actually have a schedule that we're kicking into place, and we're treating it like an actual production schedule. Even though it's still a hobby project, it's okay, we actually have to get these things done every single week, which keeps us on track. And I'm a big fan of that. Some people don't like to have schedules. Some people don't like to do that because they're like, oh, just need to let it come creatively. Eh, yeah, but the problem with that is that if you don't have a set schedule, you don't ever actually complete anything. Um, I could point to a dozen projects right now that have that issue that have been going on for like 7, 8, 9 years, and because they don't want to hold themselves to a production schedule, they don't ever get anything done. So I think it's very important, even with a hobby project, to have goals that you shoot for. Um, but that's just a habit pattern. I've been self-employed since I was 20, 21, so you don't get anywhere being self-employed if you don't have deadlines and objectives. Otherwise, you don't pay the bills. So you got to get things done to get paid. So yeah, Moving into March, it's going to be about 10 hours a week. The objective is 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And then if there's inspiration that hits on the weekend, then we work on it on the weekends as well. But the idea is that Monday through Friday we do 2 hours a day, and then weekends are, for whatever. Weekends are for us time, me time, relax time, Netflix and video games times. Um, we're still going to be continuing as an FYI. For anybody who wants to join us, excuse me, I think this weekend we've got two brothers who are joining us, who are just random people who found my Lotro videos, joined our Discord, started hanging out, having fun hanging out, decided to start playing Lotro, and they wanted to join our guild. So they're going to be coming in this weekend, I think. So if any of you out there want to come play Lord of the Rings online with us, feel free. The guild is on the Laurelin server, which is the old European server, but it's a roleplay server with a really old community. That's where we're playing. It's my brother and I. One of my brother's longtime friends that he's known since he was like 7 years old. Um, and then one of our old Saga Lucemia gaming community members, Rack, and now these two brothers. I mean, it's only a handful of us, but um, it's just whoever wants to come join us. We play Mondays and Thursdays is the primary schedule. Evenings, Central Time, around 8 p.m. But like the last couple weeks, I've started streaming at like 6 o'clock because I have a few people who follow from the UK. So I get on at like 6. It's late night for them, but they get to hang out for an hour and a half. Like Lori, hey Lori, you're one of those people. Um, and it's nice to be able to do that. And I don't mind because it gives, I got a couple hours I can stream, and then my brother gets on and we play for an hour, hour and a half. So I do a 3.5 hour session maybe, 3.5, 4 hours. That's the max for me, by the way. I can't, my eyes can't take it. Like if I'm sitting here for more than 4 hours, you know, I get like dry eye, and it's also because we live in a very dry environment. The humidity here is like 5% humidity in Mexico City, 5 to 15%. So I mean, it's very, very dry. So even with a humidifier here, it's like I get after I'm spending like 3 hours on the computer, it's like, no, I need to take a break. My eyes are killing me. Um, the days of me sitting here and playing for 12, 15 hours a day are long gone. I'm not a like I said before, I'm not a full-time streamer. I stream for fun. It's a hobby for me. So yeah, if you want to join us in Lotro Mondays and Thursday nights, feel free to ping me on Discord or wherever and get you an invite into the guild. Oh my goodness, we've already been talking for 37 minutes this morning. What else can I talk about? I'm sure I could talk about a lot of other things. But those are the most important things that happened this past week is, you know, experimenting with TikTok, the travel related stuff. I'm actually after this um, meeting, after I finish recording this video and get it uploading to YouTube, I gotta go start editing videos for the next for the next issue of Hidden Compass. We've got submissions from the next round of storytellers, photographers, so I gotta start doing the edits on those for the videos. And then at 7:30 this morning, in 2 hours from now, I have a meeting with an old friend of mine. She's actually if I remember correctly, I met her the first time she was one of my interns back in, ooh, wow, late, I want to say it was late 2014. I think it was before we went to Spain, I think. Because we went to Spain like March, April, May, I think, of 2015, and I think it was right before that, like November, December 2014. She was one of my interns slash students, and her and her husband had a travel blog. They're based in Milan, Italy, and she had a travel blog, and they were doing like camping and hiking and outdoor stuff. And I was very adamant that because she lived in Milan, I was like, Milan is a huge tourist destination. There's not a lot of information out there. You should do like a Mondays in Milan series, and so develop this hashtag Mondays in Milan. And as I recall, that got the attention of National Geographic, and she ended up doing a Nat Geo um, travel guide or editing a travel guide for Milan. I forget exactly how that all played out, but this is somebody I've known for a long time. Started off as an intern of mine, and then her and her husband have grown their travel blog significantly. They've worked on a lot of big projects for some of the like Norway, Japan, South Africa. They've done some big projects around the world now with a bunch of the tourism boards and stuff. And it's been interesting to watch them grow. They're great people. They've done some public speaking engagements. We've met up with them a couple of times. They were here in Mexico City, I want to say a couple of years ago as well. Um, so I have a meeting with her at 7:30 this morning. Meeting up with her and her husband, talking about some fun new projects that I wanted their input on and potentially might be working with them on. So this just goes back to keeping your toes in that space and continue to work in the travel space as well. And then I need to do a new marginal boundaries video because my wife and I were supposed to do one video a month, and we're already almost finished with February, and I never did a video for February, but I'm supposed to do a video about. We've got two pieces of content that we're supposed to do for Mexico City. We're supposed to do a video on health insurance in Mexico because it's a big topic for people in the United States. They want to know more about it, and because it's universal health care and it's affordable. Um, Without getting into the details, my wife and I paid for our annual, and this is if you work, if you have a job, it's paid for by your job, but she's not working right now, so we paid for it out of pocket. But even out of pocket, um, the cost for the total year for the two of us was about $550, more or less, like $550 for the whole year. And what do we get for that? The very basic is that it's a universal. So $550, you get unlimited doctor visits, unlimited prescription medication, unlimited surgeries. 100% of everything is included in that 500 and some dollars a year. And that's there's multiple tiers of healthcare in Mexico. This is like the mid tier. Um, it's the tier that every single worker in Mexico is on. Your employer is required by law to pay into the system. It's called IMSS. IMSS is what they call it. Um, it's not they're not the high-end private hospitals, but it's just the hospitals that everyone has access to if you're a worker in Mexico. And even if you pay out of pocket, it's very affordable. And the nice thing about it is the unlimited prescription medications, unlimited doctor visits, no copays on anything. It's just that's the price you pay for the whole year. So I wanted to do, because we've been requested to do it, a video on the healthcare systems in Mexico because it's extremely affordable, and that's why a lot of expats come down here and live. It's why a lot of pensioners come down here and live because they might only be getting $1,200, $1,500 a month from Social Security and their pension. That's not enough to live on in the United States. They come down here and they can get a very nice place for, $1,000 a month for a couple, and then basically, I don't want to say free healthcare because it's not free. You do have to pay for it, but comparatively speaking, as opposed to needing to spend $500 to $700 a month in the United States and still have to pay co-pays on top of that, you pay that for the whole year and it's all taken care of. So that's one of the types of videos we're supposed to produce. And then I also need to do a video because uh, Tim Leffels travel guides have our recommendations in there for renting in Mexico based on my old guidebooks for Mexico. And he actually reached out to me, I want to say about 6 months ago, and had me update the info in his travel guide, talking about our experience here renting in Mexico City and the costs and everything else. And I've talked about this in one of the Diary of an Indie Game Dev videos, I think, bootstrapping. I think it was the bootstrapping episode. I talked about the costs of where we live, but I'm going to do a video on that because the last video we did was renting in Cancun. It was like 7 years ago, and we've had requests to do a new video for here in Mexico City. So if you like that kind of content, head over to the Marginal Boundaries YouTube channel because I'll be doing some of those in the coming weeks and months. Anyway, 45 minutes in. This is the longest episode we've done. Monday Musings. They're probably just going to get longer as we go along because I like talking. Um, and if I ever get co-hosts on here, we'll end up doing like Joe Rogan length stuff. By the way, if anybody you want to come on the show and just sit and ramble with me, let me know and we'll set that up. We can record it whenever we want. It doesn't have to be on a Monday morning. It could be recorded on a Wednesday night and we just put it out on Monday morning. So if anybody wants to come on and hang out and shoot the shit about various topics, I have no problems doing that. So it can be about whatever because this is not a thematic show. I'm not talking about only games or only travel or only fantasy and science fiction. It's about whatever is on my mind for the morning. So I think that's going to be the cutoff point. Besides, the remnants of my coffee are cold. And I've got video editing to do, and I got a meeting to prep for in a couple hours. So I need to actually get going and get some exercises in, maybe go for a run, get my cardio in for the day. Again, thanks to everybody for following along, for subscribing, all the new people. Oh, excuse me. I don't know why I woke up at 3:30 today. I did go to bed kind of early last night, like 9 o'clock. I was asleep by like, I remember looking, it was like 9:13 or something, so I had a pretty early night last night. I don't even know what time my wife came to bed. I know she drank a cup of coffee at like 8 o'clock, and I teased her because I was like, "You're going to be up all night now." And she just hung out and watched Netflix. She was watching sketch videos, I think, when I went to bed anyway. She was watching sketch tutorials on YouTube for shading and shadows and stuff. So, yeah. Thanks, everybody. And I should just remind you, if you haven't already done so, and you want to listen to more ramblings like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you get updates when new content is available. All the different things here on the channel, just go down and scroll through all the videos because you'll see what I do here on a regular basis. And of course, Patreon, 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 Patreon. I'm going to harp on Patreon. Some of you are going to unsubscribe because of how much I harp on Patreon. I don't really care. Uh, the whole point of this is to, as you can see, promoting Patreon. We're pushing everybody to Patreon um, starting in March. So all the big things, the projects, the creativity that I'm working on this year is all going to be done through there. So make sure you go over to Patreon and subscribe, even if it's just at the lowest tier, um, because there's cool stuff you get access to even there. So stick around. See you there. See you here. See you in the next episode. Cheers.